Hello, everybody. Welcome to this pre-registration webinar for Racial Equity 2030. We are expecting a lot of participants for this session, so I'm just pausing until it looks like we have a good critical mass of people who have signed on. So once again, good morning or good day, depending on which part of the world you are in. So again, thank you for joining today's webinar for Racial Equity 2030. My name is Talia Gibbous. I am a program officer with CARET, the agency that is supporting Lever for Change and the WK Kellogg Foundation for this challenge. A few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the news and updates page of the challenge website, racialequity2030.org, later this week. We will also email the recording to everyone who has registered for the challenge. We will also be posting translations of the webinar transcript in Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese in approximately 1 week. Please note, this is the second pre-registration webinar that we've offered for this challenge. The first took place on December 14th. That recording is already available on the news and updates page. We encourage you to watch it if you have not already. For those of you who may have attended that first webinar, please note that the content for this session will largely be the same, with the exception, of course, of the questions that you submit during the session. We have reserved the majority of our time over the next hour for those questions. In just a moment, we will watch a brief welcome video from Lejeune Montgomery Tabron, President and CEO of the WK Kellogg Foundation. Then Lever for Change will further welcome you and provide an overview of Racial Equity 2030. Then I will do a quick walkthrough of the challenge website with my colleague Ethan Matthews, and then my colleague Jenny Adams will help open it up with your questions. As your questions come in, please type them into the Q&A tab and we will answer as many as we can within our allotted time. And members of our team will also be typing responses to those questions in the Q&A tab. Some very, very important dates to keep in mind. The deadline to register for Racial Equity 2030 is Thursday, January 28th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. You must register in order to be eligible to submit an application. Also, we will be planning 2 pre-application webinars in early February. Those sign-up links will be shared with all registered applicants shortly after the registration deadline. If you have more questions after today's session, you can always reach us via email at questions@racialequity2030.org. And now I'm pleased to virtually turn things over to Lejeune Montgomery Tabron, President and CEO of the WK Kellogg Foundation, who will further welcome you via video.
Hello, I'm Lejeune Montgomery Tabron. And on behalf of the WK Kellogg Foundation, I announce to you Racial Equity 2030, a global challenge to drive transformative change. At the Kellogg Foundation, we know that change happens through people and their collective action. That's why we're awarding $90 million to fuel creative and actionable solutions to achieve racial equity in the next decade. We are launching this challenge in honor of our organization's 90th anniversary, but the spirit of it comes from our founder, Will Keith Kellogg. Mr. Kellogg believed in people and their ability to come together, reimagine, and create better futures for their children. He wanted children to face the future with confidence, and he was willing to stake his fortune to pursue that vision, even in the midst of a global crisis. In 1930, his bold action created the WK Kellogg Foundation. As we look toward the next decade, Racial Equity 2030 is our call to others in the spirit of our founder. Children are at the heart of all we do at the Kellogg Foundation. But for children to thrive, their families need to be able to provide for them, and their communities need to be equitable places of opportunity. The stark inequities we see today show how much farther we need to travel to advance racial equity so all children and their families and communities can thrive. If you feel the urgency of this time, Racial Equity 2030 is your opportunity. We invite teams of bold visionaries and community leaders from every sector to join this global challenge. Let's reimagine and build a future where racial equity is realized.
And now I'm pleased to turn things over to Jenna Shornack of Lever for Change to further welcome you.
Thanks, Talia. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jenna Shornack. I am an awards director at Lever for Change. Lever for Change is an affiliate of the MacArthur Foundation, and our mission is to unlock a significant philanthropic capital and help accelerate positive social change around the world's biggest challenges. We do this through challenges like Racial Equity 2030 and our Bold Solutions Network, a searchable database containing top vetted proposals from all of our challenges. We are thrilled to be working with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, and we are especially excited about Racial Equity 2030 because up to 10 finalists will be identified and receive $1 million planning grants, along with 9 months of capacity building support to further develop their project and strengthen their application. Final awardees will be selected from a pool of finalists, and at least 3 awardees will receive grants of $20 million each, and at least 2 awardees will receive grants of $10 million each. Today, I will speak briefly about the scoring criteria to help you understand what we think makes a strong proposal. Please note that the application is up on the Racial Equity 2030 website right now, and you can begin working on it as soon as you register. I also encourage you to please assess your fit for the challenge by filling out the organizational readiness tool on the website. The scoring rubric also lives on the website. It outlines the criteria upon which your proposal will be evaluated by applicants in peer-to-peer review, and the same rubric will be used by the evaluation panel should you make it to that stage. There are 4 equally weighted criteria, each with a score of 1 through 5. The first scoring category is game-changing. We'd like to see solutions that are intentionally designed to transform policies, processes, institutions, or power structures. Your solution should be rooted in a deep understanding of conditions and systems and identify key leverage points for changing those systems. Solutions may tackle the social, economic, political, or institutional inequities we see today. The second scoring category is about equity. Your proposal should address the root of racialized outcomes and inequitable systems. The solution and approach should be asset-based and acknowledge historical inequities. We'd like to see impacted communities in decision-making positions taking the lead on defining success for the project. Although the term racial equity has specific connotations within the United States, in a global context, we believe a racially equitable society is one in which neither race nor ethnicity determines opportunity and life outcomes. It is a society where all groups have the ability to participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. Depending on local conditions, barriers to that vision may be rooted in perceived racial difference and/or oppression tied to ethnicity, caste, or economic injustice. I encourage you to read more about this on the FAQs on the website on the homepage. The next category is bold, meaning the proposed solution reimagines possibilities through its approach or solution. The proposal should create sustained conditions in which children, families, and communities can thrive. We hope this challenge is an opportunity to take risks, build, innovate, and explore possibilities over the next decade. That brings us to the final criteria, actionable. This is really about your team, your plan for implementation, and financial planning. We want to see you are well positioned to meet your goals you outline in the application. Please note that early to mid-stage ideas are welcome, as well as partnerships between teams. I encourage you to check out the scoring rubric on the website for more details. I will now hand it back to Talia from CARET to explain in more detail the application, eligibility criteria, and other aspects of Racial Equity 2030.
Thank you, Jenna. And once again, thanks to everyone who is joining us. So as Jenna mentioned, your first step to determine whether or not you're a good fit for this opportunity is the organizational readiness tool, which you can access from the main drop-down menu. That tool will walk you through a number of questions to determine your eligibility for this challenge. This challenge is open to organizations of all sizes and all types from anywhere in the world. Please note that all proposed projects must have a charitable purpose. Also, the proposed ideas must embrace and reflect the values of racial equity and justice. They must be led by a team that centers on lived experience and includes communities closest to the issues as part of leadership in the project. Teams must also have the capacity to complete applications in English and review and score peer review submissions in English. Please note that individuals are not eligible to apply for Racial Equity 2030. So if you go through that organizational readiness tool and have answered yes to each question, we encourage you to complete the registration process. As I mentioned before, registration is required in order for you to be able to submit an application, and it's very simple. You go to the upper right-hand corner of any page on the website and click on the button that counts down the number of days left to register. You will then be instructed to create and confirm your account. After that, you will be prompted to submit basic information about your organization so we can better understand our registrant community. An important note, you will not receive an email confirmation of your registration. If you are able to access the online application and the forums on the platform, that means you have registered properly for the challenge. Racial Equity 2030, like all of our challenges, is rooted in the values of openness, transparency, and fairness. We want to ensure that everyone who registers and applies knows exactly what we expect from them, when and how they're going to be scored, and who will be evaluating their solutions. RacialEquity2030.org is built as an instructional guide to understanding that process. There are two great places to start to really understand what this challenge is looking for. Jenna talked about the scoring rubric already. So another resource is the Racial Equity 2030 application. And you can see that on the website, the full text of the application is available to any visitor. All of the questions, prompts, requirements, and word count limits. The application has several sections, and you're encouraged to read over all of them so you have a good grasp of what is required in order to submit. Once you've done that and you've looked at the scoring rubric, you should have a very good sense of what you'll need to do to apply. And of course, the next question is how your proposal will be evaluated. One quick other note on the scoring rubric, which Jenna talked about at some length, I just want to reiterate that the site provides details on what each trait means in this context. And so when you go on the site, you can toggle back and forth between the scoring ranges for any given trait and see a phrase that will provide further detail on what a high and low score means for that particular trait. So again, this really helps to define what makes a strong application. It is also the same tool that peer-to-peer and the expert review panel judges will be using as they score their assigned applications. And this brings us to the actual scoring process, which you can read about on the evaluation page of the website. So following the application deadline, all eligible submissions will first move into peer-to-peer review. During that process, each lead applicant will score and comment on 5 applications from other organizations using that same scoring rubric we just looked at. All applicants must participate in peer-to-peer review, reviewing and scoring 5 other applications in order to remain eligible for this opportunity. Once peer-to-peer review is complete, a subset of top scoring applications will move forward to the expert review panel. And you can see a list of the confirmed expert review panel members on the website. So not only will you receive scores on your application from 5 of these individuals, you will also get written feedback. Because in addition to numeric scores, both peer reviewers and the expert review panel members are required to provide comments to justify each score and note their overall impression of each application. 2 things to note: we will be adding more expert review panel members as they are confirmed, so please check back often. And we often find that the feedback that participants receive is one of the most important aspects of participating in our challenges. Even if you are not selected as a finalist or awarded a grant, you do walk away with valuable feedback that you can then use to refine your solutions and perhaps seek other funding or expanded support. This brings us to another common question we receive. There are a lot of people participating in peer-to-peer review and the expert review panel, so what do we do to ensure that process is fair? To address this question, we have a web page that is dedicated specifically to explaining how we normalize scores. So I mentioned that each valid application will first be scored by 5 fellow applicants, and a subset of top scoring submissions will then be scored by 5 members of the expert review panel. And this means that not every applicant and not every judge will be looking at every application. We make sure that you're not disadvantaged if by chance you were assigned to a hard grader and another applicant was reviewed by someone who just naturally tends to be a little bit more lenient. In brief, all of the scores are rescaled and normalized. So again, this page titled Level Playing Field goes in depth about how this works, and you are encouraged to read more about that. There's a few other items on the website that I want to quickly point out. The first is the rules page. And on this page, you can read about the legal stipulations on teams that govern their participation, the eligibility criteria, and learn more about all of the terms and conditions required for participating teams. And then finally, there's also the timeline page, and that details each phase of the challenge. Some important upcoming milestones on that timeline. Registration, as I've said, is required. It must be completed by Thursday, January 28th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time in order for you to be eligible to submit a proposal. And then the application deadline is Thursday, February 25th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Looking past that, peer-to-peer review will take place over a period of several weeks in early spring. Reviews will happen independently over this time period, and applicants will be using our online scoring platform to evaluate and comment on their assigned applications. And then you are free to click through the other further elements of the timeline to see all of the other key dates related to the challenge. The website includes a few other helpful areas like news and updates. That's where we will be posting the recording of this webinar and where you can find the recording of the December webinar. And then there's also a series of frequently asked questions on the main landing site. So we encourage you to read over all of this if you have not done so already. And with that, I'm happy to move into the Q&A portion of this session. So please continue to add your questions to the Q&A tab, and we will get to as many as we can in the time we have. Please note that to ensure fairness, we are not able to provide guidance specific to your proposed solution, so we encourage you to take the organizational readiness tool and review the pages of the website to help determine if you are a strong fit. And with that, we have my colleague Jenny to help get your questions answered.
Thank you, Talia. As Talia mentioned, I will read the question aloud and my colleagues will answer verbally on the phone. We will get through as many questions as we can in about the next 40 minutes or so. So I will just go ahead and jump in. First question, my nonprofit is grassroots and fairly new. Do I have a real shot at this grant, or is this for established organizations who want to pursue new ideas to advance racial equity?
I can take this one. This is Jenna. Yes, so one of the WK Kellogg Foundation's goals in creating this challenge is to ensure that it is open to organizations that are not necessarily established
or already well known within philanthropic circles. So we do encourage you to take the organizational readiness tool on the website, and if you have an idea that meets the criteria laid out in the scoring rubric, we hope you will consider participating. Please note that one of the criteria in the rubric is actionable and specifically speaks to questions about capacity to implement the proposed project that you identify in your application. So depending on what you have in mind, we welcome you to apply, and also you might consider partnering with another organization on a proposal.
Next question. If we apply for the Racial Equity Challenge, does that preclude us from pursuing other grants with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation separate and apart from the challenge?
This is Talia. No, it does not. So if you apply, you will still be eligible for other grants from the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. However, you are encouraged to submit a proposal for Racial Equity 2030 that does not overlap with any projects that are currently funded by the Kellogg Foundation if you are a grantee.
Next question. We would like to know if racial discrimination also includes tribal discrimination.
I can take this one. Yes, tribal discrimination may be addressed through this challenge as it may be related to the after effects of colonialism. So we recognize that the term racial equity has specific connotations with the United States. And in this context, in a global setting, the challenge seeks to advance equity within hierarchy, structures, policies, systems, and practices of dehumanization that perpetuate disparities for racial ethnic groups in a local context. So yes, that would be included.
Next question. Are there prescribed and or required budget and cost categories?
This is Talia. This is a great question. So if you go to the application page of the website, you will see that there is a resource requirement section. And in that section, you will see some guidelines for the budget that are listed. You will also see that there's a basic chart template that is provided for the budget. The budget is meant to be fairly high level, and it should cover a 10-year period. It is absolutely fine to include general categories and lump sum figures. Again, that template is fairly basic, but you do want to make sure that the reviewers will get a very good sense of how you intend to use the 20 million. And if you are selected as a finalist, you will be asked to provide much more detailed budget documents.
Next question. Given the challenge will have a global reach, how will you evaluate impact?
I can take this one. So we encourage you to look at the scoring rubric for more information about how proposals will be evaluated. Impact is not explicitly called out as a separate category, but it is implied in game-changing, equitable, and bold. There is no expectation that your proposed solution have a global impact, but rather you think through how to address the rubric criteria for your particular community. We are really looking for you and the community most impacted by your solution to define what you consider to be impact and your goals.
Next question. Do MOUs need to be signed and executed before the submission of the application?
No, so MOUs do not need to be provided as part of your submission in your application. However, should you become a finalist, we will ask you to submit executed MOU, and details about the requirements for those MOUs are provided on the website in the application if you would like to see what we may request. But for this stage of the challenge, MOUs are not required. There is a question just asking if you have one in place, if you plan to have one in place or you do not plan to have one in place, but you do not need to submit the actual MOU.
Next question, also related. Will signed letters of support and agreement to sign an MOU work?
This is Talia, so just to reiterate what Jenna just noted, the MOU is not required at this stage of the competition, and there is no option on the application to upload either an MOU or letters of support. So neither are required, and they cannot be submitted at this phase of the competition.
Next question. How is the video component weighed in regards to the scoring evaluation?
I can take this one. So we encourage peer reviewers and expert reviewers to provide a score based on the entirety of the application, which includes the video. And applicants and reviewers are really encouraged to focus on the content of the videos, not the production value. So we really encourage you to not spend money or professional video productions on your video. Most applicants opt to shoot a very basic talking head video with an iPhone or your computer where individual introduces their team and describes the solution. We have done some analysis that show expensive looking, really well produced videos on average do not score higher than other top ranked proposals that did not invest in video. So we really encourage you to keep your video to a basic production level.
Next question. I am part of an organization in the USA. During pre-registration brainstorming, stakeholders in our organization realized we may wish to collaborate with organizations that are also applying for these awards. Will there be a way between the registration deadline and the submission deadline for organizations to combine or intersect with one another without causing competition for a similar project?
This is a great question. So as we mentioned, once you register for this challenge, you will have access to applicant forums on the back end of the website. And those forums are a great place to post messages to other teams that are interested in Racial Equity 2030 and possibly planning to participate. So you are encouraged to reach out there if you're looking to collaborate with other organizations. Please note that each applicant is only able to submit one entry or one application. You can submit multiple proposals from an organization if you have distinct team members, but we do in general strongly advise that teams concentrate on a single effort that meets the criteria laid out in the scoring rubric. And also please note that each application will require a unique registration.
Next question. Are LLCs able to apply, or does the organization need to be a nonprofit?
This is Talia again. No, the organization does not need to be a nonprofit. Racial Equity 2030 welcomes entries from organizations and entities that have a recognized legal existence and structure under the applicable laws in the jurisdiction in which they are organized and located. So again, this is a global challenge. So organizations of all types and sizes are welcome to apply, but as we noted earlier, all projects must have a charitable purpose in order to participate.
Next question. Can you discuss what kind of travel is not permitted in the grant? If, for example, part of your proposal is to train people to modify their discipline and they need to travel to a central location, can you support their travel costs?
This is Talia again. So I believe this question is referring to a note in the rules that prohibits subgrants to individuals for travel or study. So again, those subgrants to individuals for travel are not allowed, or that's not an acceptable use of funds. However, you may budget for travel that is part of your proposed project. So that would include things like reimbursements or per diems to individuals. So that may be built into your budget.
Next question. If we are not selected, how are our project ideas that are reviewed by others protected?
That's a great question. So this is an open challenge, and as we mentioned, your proposal will be reviewed by at least 5 peers, applicants, and at least 5 reviewers. And we do not ask reviewers to sign an NDA or anything like that. So we ask that you do not provide confidential information or information that you do not want shared with other participants in the challenge in your application.
Next question. Do we need to submit subcontractor or partner budgets as part of the proposal package or just list them? It's
a great question. So in the budget, we would really like to see in broad terms how you would allocate $20 million grant to implement your solution. So really what we're looking for is a better understanding of your priorities and how you will account for things like monitoring, learning, and evaluation. And you can keep things at a very high level categories like personnel, travel, capital expenditures. And we also imagine reviewers will be looking at this budget to assess the actionability criteria of your project, and that you have realistic understanding of costs and activities needed to implement the solution. So you do not need too much detail about the subcontractors or partners, and you may not even have some of those identified. For example, you might not have your monitoring, learning, and evaluation partner identified at this stage, and that's okay.
Next question, which is also related, is a budget template being provided with the application?
This is Talia. Yes, it is. If you go to the application page of the website and then go down to the resource requirements section, you will see that there is a fairly simple template that is provided. So again, the budget is meant to be high level, and you will be using that same template to enter your items on the back end of the application.
Next question. We are a national organization with over 25 affiliate members. We plan to conduct a sub-grant process to distribute the funds and don't yet know which locations will apply or be awarded. How should we handle the questions about locations?
I can take this one. It's a great question. So we just ask that you provide the most accurate information you can in the application. And if there are still open decisions about the exact locations of work, for example, you can talk about those questions in the narrative section of your application and how you might proceed in making those decisions, and just provide the most accurate information you have where you have to list the locations that you plan to work.
Next question. Are sub-grants to partners allowed? That is, an application process for qualified candidates to be considered as partners for developing and implementing solutions.
I can take this one again. So funds may be sub-granted from an applicant to implement the proposed solutions, but not for general funds used for broader purposes. So please know that you do not have to identify all your partners during the development stage. We imagine those details will be worked out, and you may be adding more partners as you see gaps in your plan to implement your solution. But this challenge is the intent of this challenge is not to set up a foundation or some sort of grant-making entity, but we do allow sub-grants to implement your solution if that is what is required.
Next question. Our project idea is a larger scale community project that involves several different threads, including agriculture, manufacturing, education, handcrafting, marketing, social media, and local governments. Would the W.K. Kellogg Foundation fund a planning grant to develop a plan of action for our racial equity project in the Mayan region of Valladolid, Yucatan?
I can take this one. So there will be a year for all of the 10 finalists that are selected. They will each receive a $1 million planning grant to further develop their plan and proposal for implementing the solution that they've identified in their original application. And so we do expect that there will be that 1 year and $1 million planning grant to really plan for how you will implement the solution. But obviously we can't comment on the exact nature of your proposal.
Next question. How fleshed out must an organization's DUNS number profile be? Is a DUNS necessary?
This is Talia. So the application does ask for an organization identification number and a tax identification number that is provided by your taxing authority, which would be the Internal Revenue Service if you're in the United States. But given that this is a global opportunity, that will look different depending on where you are. So it does not specifically ask for a DUNS number.
Next question. Is there preference for organizations that serve multiple populations?
This is Jenna. No, we do not have a preference nor expect projects to serve multiple populations. We do expect that your proposal is inclusive of communities most impacted by the issue, and they are included in decision making. But we do not have a preference for working across multiple populations or working in a global context.
Next question. Should budgets focus on the first planning year approach or project the full 10-year spending?
So your budget and application should reflect the 10-year implementation period for $20 million, and it does not need to include the planning year.
Next question. Should we include citations in the answers or only in the section that is designated for references?
This is Talia. You are encouraged to use the section that is designated for references. Also, please note that you should not be using any links or URLs that you're including in that section to circumvent any word count limits. So again, there is a designated section in the application where you can include references to external sources.
Next question. Does the foundation have any advice on scoring criteria for organizations that simultaneously focus on programming and policy change and whose proposal includes program objectives to study and disseminate undiscovered areas of public information and contracts and policy?
I can take that one. That's a great question. We really encourage you to look at the scoring rubric, particularly around game changing, and I really focusing on being explicit of how your solution, whether that's working across policy or your programming or some sort of research, will be game changing in transforming policies, processes, institutions, or power structures. I would also encourage you to look at equitable. So if you were focusing on some sort of research, that research is including communities that are most impacted by the solution, and you will be assessed on that by reviewers. So again, I really encourage you to look at the scoring criteria and imagine how reviewers would be assessing your proposed solution across those categories.
Next question. Can an individual participate in 2 different organizations, especially as a top management team for this challenge?
So no, you should not be a you should not be a lead team member on more than one proposal. As we mentioned earlier, it is possible to have organizations, especially organizations that have affiliates or universities that have multiple departments or schools to submit more than one application, but the proposals must be separate and distinct, and there should not be any overlap between the team members.
Next question. Are only 5 locations for the proposed work allowed within the grant application, or is it possible to have more than 5?
This is Talia again. So that section of the application does limit you to 5 locations. So we encourage you to choose the 5 that are the most closely aligned with your proposed solution. And please note that you are welcome and encouraged throughout the narrative to be more specific regarding the full scope of the geography that your proposal will target. And there is also on the application an other considerations section that provides space for you to provide additional context there if you feel that the 5 locations you've selected don't adequately describe the full scope of what you are attempting to do.
Next question, which is similar to a previously asked question. I am interested in collaborating with others, but do not know how to find such individuals. Is there a platform or discussion board I can share my interests and information with other applicants?
This is Talia again. Yes, there is, and it is the Register Applicant Forum. So again, you are encouraged if you meet the organizational readiness tool requirements to register for Racial Equity 2030. And once you do that, you will have access to forums where you can post messages and reply to messages that are posted by your colleagues who are also interested in this challenge.
Next question. The readiness tool doesn't say you will vet an organization for how they can process $20 million, but I think it's reasonable that you do that. Should we indicate that we can?
That's a great question. So as I said earlier, one of the goals of this challenge is to ensure that it's open to organizations that are not necessarily established or already are well known by foundation circles. So if you have an idea that meets the scoring rubric and you took the organizational readiness tool, we do hope that you will participate and you will pay attention to the criteria that is about actionability. And it really speaks to questions about your capacity to implement the proposed project. I also stress that the challenge is, seeking bold, innovative ideas, and early to mid-stage ideas are welcome. Additionally, we've built in this planning year and planning grant specifically to help organizations prepare and be ready to absorb a large amount of money, including those $20 million or $10 million grants. And during that period, we do some due diligence activities. We also provide capacity building support and strategic planning, and we will work with each team to build a plan for how they will absorb a large grant.
Next question. How could projects without an existing website not be at a competitive disadvantage? Since racial equity is a complex issue that calls for complex and bold solutions, it is encouraged to build a website just to be in a position to explain our proposed solution in more detail. I guess that was a question asking that. Otherwise, how is the website component weighed in regards to the scoring evaluation?
That's a great question. So we do ask for your website on the application, but if you do not have one, that is fine. We really encourage reviewers, both peer reviewers and expert reviewers, to assess the project on what is in the application and the content that is in your answers. We do not require people click links or look at the materials that you've provided beyond what is in the narrative section of your application. So that is not part of the scoring rubric and how you will be assessed.
Next question. Will current WKKF grant recipients with an existing program be able to use this funding to scale the program to a regional or national scale?
Great question. So Kellogg grantees are welcome to apply, but we really encourage you to submit a project that is not overlapping with something that is already being funded by Kellogg. And so if the scaling to a region or a national scale is significantly different than what you are already being funded by Kellogg to do, that is allowed, but we really encourage you to not have much overlap.
Next question, are public schools eligible to apply?
I can take this one. So government agencies may participate if their project is charitable or educational in nature, and if your proposed activities are not services typically covered by tax revenues. So this can get tricky with public schools, and if you have a specific question about your project, just email us and we can provide more details on that.
Similar question, are public and state entities included in organizations with charitable ends eligible?
Yes, similar to the public schools. So government agencies can participate if your project is charitable, as you mentioned, and if your proposed activities are not services typically covered by tax revenues. So we outline a lot of this on the rules on the website.
Next question, what is the difference between partner and collaborator?
They are used interchangeably. So we do ask for your key partners in the application, and they can be people you're collaborating with, subcontractors, other organizations that you are submitting with. You will need to identify the lead organization, that is the organization that is in charge of managing the project and will be the grantee. But we use those terms interchangeably.
Next question. Our organization is United Way applying as a lead applicant with 2 other community partners. This project will be new, collaborative, and county-wide and will function separately from United Way's community investment portfolio. Is the United Way eligible to apply as a lead applicant for this project, although they are traditionally seen as a funding aggregator?
So there has to be a lead organization that is set up as a legal entity to absorb the grant. So whether that's United Way, acting as some sort of fiscal sponsor, or you've already set up a separate organization to manage and absorb the grant, either way is fine. But if the purpose of United Way is serving as the lead applicant to sub-grant to implement the solution, that is fine.
Next question. Certain sections of the application specifically mention that they will be reviewed by peers and judges. Are there any components of the application that will not be weighed in the evaluation?
This is Talia. So yes, there is one section on the application, and it is marked that it will not be viewed by peers and by judges. However, the vast majority of the application will be visible, so please be sure to make a note of that as you're going through.
Next question. Are religious organizations eligible, and are faith-based organizations eligible to apply?
I can take this one. Yes, as long as you meet the criteria laid out in the rules, you are eligible to apply.
Next question. When you say there will be at least 3 $20 million recipients, does that mean there could be more than 3? And what will the average individual grant size be?
Great question. So at this time, we plan to have 3 $20 million recipients and 2 $10 million recipients. And then each of those 10 finalists will also get $1 million in planning grants.
Next question. Can an organization submit more than one application if the programs are completely different and non-duplicative?
This is Talia. So if you are a regional or location-specific branch of a larger organization, or for example, a department, school, or nonprofit that is within a college or university system, or if you have a number of affiliates, then you can register. You can have an organization that is registering and submitting multiple applications. However, again, as we stressed before, the solutions must be different and separate, and there should be no overlap in team members. And we are really encouraging you to concentrate your best efforts into a single entry and to really think through the best way to deliver a solution that can best meet the scoring criteria.
Next question. Are there records of past grantees or past application language we can reference?
Great question. So we are excited to say this is the first time we've run the Racial Equity 2030 Challenge. So we do not have examples of past grantees nor example application language to share with you.
Next question. Can organizations be fiscal projects, or do they need to be incorporated? Can you use a fiscal sponsor if you are a for-profit?
This is Talia. Again, yes, you can use a fiscal sponsor. The fiscal sponsor in that case would need to be the lead applicant and the applicant of record. And there is a section on the application, the why your team section, where you are able to fully explain the relationship between the fiscal sponsor and the rest of your team, and to fully explain the roles and responsibilities. So absolutely, yes, you can apply if you are fiscally sponsored, but please be sure to clarify all of those relationships in the application narrative.
Next question. In WK Kellogg's regular grant process, I know that having an early childhood focus is heavily prioritized. Can an organization that doesn't do direct early childhood service apply for this challenge?
I can take this one. Great question. So the goals of this challenge include transforming the systems and institutions that uphold inequities to improve the lives of children and families across the globe. So we're looking for ideas that bring transformational change in policies, processes, institutions, and power structures, proposals that address the root causes of racialized outcomes and inequitable systems, and solutions that center communities most impacted by the issue. So why proposed solutions are not expected to improve the lives of children exclusively, it is our hope that awarded solutions result in long-term impact with potential to benefit generations to come. So again, we encourage you to look at the scoring rubric about what our priorities are, but you certainly do not need to focus directly on early childhood service for this challenge.
Next question, and we have just a few minutes left here. For organizations that focus heavily on policy advocacy as a means to systems change, is there a limit on how much of the funding can be spent on grassroots lobbying?
Great question, I can take this one. So on the website, we do have a link to a page that explains our lobbying policy. And I encourage you to go to that page instead of me verbally telling you all of the details, but we do have a lot of information about what we consider to be allowed, what are allowable activities, specifically in regards to lobbying.
Next question. Is the 3-year audit financials a requirement? Would you accept 2 years of audited financials and 1 year of non-audited financials?
This is Talia. So the audit pertains only to applicants who are selected as finalists. And so if you are selected, the team will work closely with you to gather the necessary documents and make any adjustments as needed. So if you have 2 years of an audit or 1 year of non-audited financials, that does not disqualify you. So please do not let that hinder your interest in applying.
Next question. Can funds help establish an endowment?
You may not use this grant. This is Talia again. You may not use this grant to create an endowment.
Next question. Are there any American Indians on the panel? Yes, the review panel.
I could take this one. Yes, we do have members of our panel who identify as Native American or Indigenous. Our goal is to have a diverse panel from their demographics, geography, expertise, and expertise about the challenge itself. We are still adding judges to the expert review panel also to match the number of applications that we will hopefully receive.
Next question. Can you give specific examples of what success looks like in terms of metrics?
I can take this one. This is Jenna. So we really look to you as an applicant to define what you consider to be successful. We don't want this to be a top-down challenge where we define what the success and metrics look like. We really want you to explain in your proposal how you plan to measure and explain your impact and what that will look like.
Next question. How many organizations do you anticipate will apply?
I can take this one. So we don't know yet, but we expect a robust amount of participation based on the number of participants in the webinars and the number of registrations we have, but we aren't sure how many of those registrations will convert into fully submitted applications, but we do expect a robust number of people to participate.
Next question. Can you provide more guidance on the allowable indirect costs? Would required indirect costs at a university be allowed if an organization that is part of a university applies?
This is Talia. So if you go to the application, you will find a link to the indirect cost policy. So you are first highly encouraged to read over that to familiarize yourself with what that policy is. And then if you do have any additional questions or need additional clarification, just send us an email at questions@racialequity2030.org and we'd be happy to assist you.
Next question. Are we able to use funds to provide stipends to participants to offset their opportunity costs, participating in our programming rather than being able to earn a salary?
This is Talia. So yes, stipends for program participation are absolutely fine and can be built into your budget.
Great, and I think we just have a few minutes left, so I think we will end the Q&A here, and my colleagues will wrap up and provide some final reminders.
Thank you so much, Jenny, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions. So a few final reminders as we wrap up. Again, if you have additional questions that you think of after the session, you can email us at questions@racialequity2030.org. If you have not done so already, please complete that organizational readiness tool. And if you find that you are a strong fit, please register no later than Thursday, January 28th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, you must be registered to submit an application. We will be making recordings and transcripts of this webinar available to all of the registrants via email. It will also be posted on the news and updates page of the website and on the forums on the back end of the platform. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will also be providing translations of the transcript of the session in Spanish, French, Haitian Creole, and Portuguese in approximately 1 week. Thank you again for joining us. We're so excited to learn more about your efforts, and I'll briefly hand things back to Lever for Change for some additional closing remarks.
Thank you, Talia. I reiterate everything Talia just said, and on behalf of Lever for Change and the WK Kellogg Foundation, thank you so much for joining us today and your interest in Racial Equity 2030. We wish you the best of luck, and please do not hesitate to get in touch if you have any questions. Have a great day.